Welcome back to Prism Lens FX FAQ, a video series dedicated to answering the most common questions we get asked over at Prism Lens FX. So today's video is going to dive into the differences and maybe the creative ways you can use the different softening filters that we offer over at prismlensfx.com. So the first question is, why use a softening filter? Well, in a lot of ways, a lot of digital cameras, they shoot such high resolution, and a lot of these newer cinema lenses, they're designed to be perfect. They're designed to be clinically sharp, and sometimes that clinically sharp digital look is maybe not the desired look you're going for. And maybe you want something that's a little more softer, something like a vintage lens or shooting on film. That tends to be a popular, look that people want to get in camera. So we decided to make the Dream FX filter to kind of emulate and mimic some of the effects you might get with like vintage, spherical lenses like Cooke S2s or shooting on film. It's not quite perfect. It just kind of takes that digital image that you're used to getting and it softens it. It just kind of blooms the highlights. And a lot of our softening filters, from our Dream FX to our CineSoft and the different strengths of those, are designed to kind of take the edge off of that scary, sharp 6K, 8K digital negative from your digital cameras. Another reason you'd use a softening filter, not only to take the edge off of your digital footage, but they work really well at softening and blooming not only the highlights in your frame, but the skin tones of your subject. And there was actually a moment in time in my career coming up as a cinematographer where I really wish I knew of and could have used a softening filter. When I was coming up, I actually didn't know what softening filters were. I was using kind of the latest model of the Red camera, shooting, I think at that time it was 5K, and I was shooting with like Zeiss Master Primes. And that combination is so sharp, almost to the point where it's like scientifically just perfect. It was a perfect image. And I mean, on the day, I thought the footage looked great, but the pop artist that I was shooting the video for, actually had a lot of negative notes in post-production because he felt like his skin was too sharp. And in that case, if I'd known, I would have used a diffusion filter. And our Dream FX, our CineSoft, or any sort of strength of those two filters work to kind of fix that issue that I experienced on that set. It not only blooms and targets the highlights in your frame, so a light bulb, a window, sort of any bright source in your frame is going to have a natural halation or bloom to it, but it's also just going to soften the skin tones and make your subject, if that's an actress or an actor, just feel more flattering in frame. And the Dream FX filter is very similar to a quarter or half strength of other sort of diffusion filters that you might be used to using, and it definitely creates an effect. If you're shooting portraits or maybe kind of want to have a little bit more of a heavy hand in terms of the overall softening of your image or softening of your subject or taking that digital edge off your camera, the Dream FX, and I'm going to show obviously some B-roll on screen, really does create a vivid look for your shot. CineSoft, we kind of adopted more of a traditional naming system, so we have quarter strength and half strength. As those names might suggest, the quarter is the more subtle version, and the half strength obviously is a bit more extreme. Like the Dream FX, I'm going to show some kind of controls with no filter, with the quarter strength and a half strength, all kind of side by side, so you can kind of assess what version of this filter is right for you. I will say the CineSoft filter is definitely a bit more dialed up than the Dream FX. So if you're looking at some of the Dream FX references and you want maybe even more of an extreme effect, an overall softening to your image, I would say the CineSoft is definitely a little bit more punched up. This last section is going to be some tips and tricks on the ways that you can use these filters to get the best results. My experience using our softening filters are using it with an image that has a lot of detail. Shooting outside where there's highlights and there's shadows, you want to have highlights in your frame. Maybe that's a window behind you, a lamp in frame, a light in frame, light on your subject. Sometimes, we have customers who buy our softening filters and then are shooting a really dark, moody interior with pretty low light levels or light values with no highlights in their frame. And they sometimes say, hey, I got your softening filter, I'm not noticing any results. And that's because, you really do need to be using it in a scene that's lit, that has lighting values to soften. So just kind of like a pro tip, these filters work really well when you have highlights in your frame. So if you're shooting outside and they're sort of getting backlit, you're gonna see that backlight is gonna have some softening. Or if there's like a light or something in your frame, you're gonna see that light's gonna be softened or bloomed out. So definitely the best results I find with our softening filters, from the Dream to the CineSoft, is shoot where there's a good amount of light levels and highlights in your frame. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this Prism Lens FX FAQ on softening filters. Try to do my best to explain when to use softening filters, what softening filters do, and the differences between the Dream effects filters and the CineSoft filters. If you have any additional questions, you can reach our support team at info@prismlensfx.com. Our team is there to answer any additional questions. But yeah, that pretty much wraps us up. Thanks for watching and keep creating.